Okay, we need to call this meeting to order. Whitney, Phil, who's going to take it away?
Phil and Ryan are going to kick things off for us today and give an overview of kind of what they're seeing and hearing as the session unfolds. And then we're going to pivot into review of our bill report, which includes, as it did last week, some draft priority and position as suggested by department. So what you see on the report that was sent out in advance of today's meeting is still draft in many cases. So turn things over to Phil and Ryan.
Thank you. I will just make a couple of brief comments. Last time we talked to you was just after the posting deadline for the Chamber of Origin. Last night was the deadline for bills to actually have been worked and have been received their vote in committee in the Chamber of Origin or their Committee of Origin for them to move. We haven't run the full numbers yet, but from historical precedent or historical practice, we had, we mentioned last time we had 38% of bills that died not making the posting deadline, and we expect another, probably 30% to be on that list again. A lot of times those bills get populated on agendas to give it as much time as possible for proponents to make negotiations and to line up the votes for passage. But a number of those, don't actually end up working out and don't advance through the committee. This has not been any different than that. There was quite a number of bills that you saw that had been posted that never did hold a work session on, and the committees would adjourn before that. So we'll get you the specific numbers as soon as we can today. But we expect that, there's roughly probably 100 bills or so, give or take, that are still circulating and moving through the process as we speak now, which is, roughly 2/3 now have died. There's also, because of the timelines, we really start to pick up the acceleration now. By the end of the week on the 18th, they will be the posting deadline for second chamber. So there really is not a whole lot of time between when the sort of second portion of the Chamber of Origin deadline and the first part of the second chamber deadline starts to come into effect. People are already starting to discuss capital, and which is the precursor to adjournment and getting out of the building. So to already start to see the light at the end of the tunnel now, just a couple of weeks into session, really sort of illustrates the fast-paced nature of things. And what we're hearing is, and I think there's going to be some announcements made soon. I know they're still wrangling over a lot of the details, but there's going to be a fairly significant focus on rural Oregon, rural infrastructure, and rural investment. And that could be something that the county benefits from if we strike when the iron is hot. And I know Phil and I are doing everything we can to make sure that we're prepared with funding requests and things to be a part of the initial wave of attention on that, and try to put your best foot forward to capture revenue back to the county.
Just to jump in, Commissioner Dare, Phil requested a copy of the fiscal asks that the board put together. And so we've shared that letter and those projects with PacWest. And so if there's any other projects that the board would like to highlight that were not captured in that letter, that's great. And if those are still the core projects that we should be communicating about, then those have been shared with both Phil and Ryan. So
The Lapine Community Health Center, I saw their letter. They were asking for 4.1 in their letter. Were we asking for 3 for it in our letter?
Double check.
Because if we are, if there's any chance, that could really help with funding that project. And then on the call this morning, I had at 6:45, they were talking about, this is the road department bill, the House Bill 4141, I believe, diesel renewable. And Senator Finley was saying, actually, there's hardly any renewable diesel. I mean, it's a great idea, but there is not very much. And somehow they think there's going to be like a -6 amendment. Chris, are you following that bill at all?
Yeah, loosely, but no, the concerns you just expressed are the current concerns we have. Just availability of the fuel is touch and go. We use it here when we can get it. But will the market keep pace if it's mandated? What do we do?
Okay.
And I do,
Oh, pivoting back to your question about Lapine Community Health Center, in the letter, we simply outlined the total project cost at 12 million and then that they've secured 2 million. So there wasn't actually a direct
Yes.
in the letter, correct?
Okay. So we definitely would love to have something for that. If, I don't know. I'm not sure if they can get their 4.1 and we could get a couple million, that would be nice. Bill and Ryan.
yeah, no, I will look at those requests and make sure that we have that on the list that we talked with leadership about. So,
Okay, all right. So Phil, did you want to go over what we're still looking at? I heard quite a
Yeah.
few bills died.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to go down the list that we have on the bill tracker report that went out, and you'll see that it's organized by next hearing, but you'll see that there's not a lot of next hearings on there because everything was rushed to the floor yesterday. This was pulled yesterday as a reflect of that, so we can capture those things that did make it. But a lot of the agendas have not been posted in the second chambers yet of when it's scheduled for work sessions, things like that. So a lot of them, you'll see the last thing on there was 214 work sessions held, and then that's about it. And so just starting off is House Bill 2123 or 4123, sorry, and that's listed as a priority 2 for the county. This one is the one that requires DAS to provide grants for certain coordinated homeless response services. Nothing had, I mean, this went from committee to Ways and Means. They're still working on this. So it has not gone to the floor, but it was sent to Ways and Means, 1, because it's going to have a fiscal, and 2, they ran out of time to negotiate it in the policy committees. So it's still alive. It is, the Ways and Means does not have to be held to the deadlines. So as a reminder, House rules, Senate rules, and then any finance and revenue committees and all Ways and Means committees are not, and joint committees, effectively, that's a better way to say it, joint transportation, for example. Those things do not have to be subject by deadlines. And so you'll see a lot of these bills were referred to those to keep them alive and keep work going, but they were not moved to the floor. This is one of those cases. But we do have that as a priority 2. We talked about it a little bit last meeting, so I didn't know if we wanted to talk about it a little bit more or not.
We're supporting it.
Mhm.
Doesn't it have 8 counties in the state that will be recipients of funding to get through?
Yes, this is one that will directly affect the county. So I just wanted to note that is a good thing it went to Ways and Means, is that means where the funding gets inserted. But that said, it just has not had a vote anyway. So we'll continue supporting it, but just wanted to let you know where the status was.
Thank you.
No problem. Next bill is 4130. This is a priority 2, and this is the Wildlife Corridors bill. This also moved out of its original policy committee into Ways and Means this week as well. And so it's sitting there depending on funding availability. But it had good conversation in hearings, but it's just sitting in Ways and Means for them to determine how much money is available. So again, we have that listed as a priority 2, and that, again, not much to talk about on that one because not much changed since our last meeting, other than it just switched committees.
Okay, so it's still alive.
Still alive. And I should note, of all these bills that are on this list, I have it clicked that it only displays the alive active bills. So the report will automatically take those bills out that have died. Every once in a while, there's a glitch and it'll capture one, but the bills in this should all be alive. If you no longer see a bill on this list, it's because it probably missed the deadline, and I just switched that toggle that says only show active bills. Next bill is 4051, and this is the housing bill that we discussed at length last meeting. This one is still alive as well. It moved over into Ways and Means, I believe, as well, but I want to just double check that so I'm not deceiving any of you. Yes, so this was referred, it was passed out of committee. It passed pretty with broad support, but it did go by way of the speaker to Ways and Means. Again, this is one that's going to take money, but I believe there's also some conversations of whether this bill goes forward on its own or whether it gets part of the budget reconciliation bill. So we're keeping an eye on it because we liked the vehicle and some of the contents of the bill. But some of that conversation is, do you just gut and stuff it into the budget reconciliation? So if we don't see 4051 move forward directly, we're going to be watching the budget reconciliation bill to see if the language pops up there as well. And likely the way that will happen is you'll see an amendment to the budget reconciliation bill, and it will be word for word House Bill 4051. And so that, and they'll pull out the funding stuff, put it there, and they will pull the policy out and put that with the program change bill. The program change bill and the budget reconciliation bills always pass at the same time. When I say program change bill, it's the policies that are used to implement the budget. So, so that's what the conversations are currently. So there's two paths for that bill to move forward, but it is still alive as well. And we have that set as a priority 3. And I didn't know, I guess I could just pause there if Whitney or Peter had any comments on that bill.
I think we're in a neutral 3 monitoring position right now, and I don't think Peter's able to make today's call, but I don't see substantive. I do see brief notes related to the -3 amendments in bill tracker, but I don't think we don't have much else to provide on this one.
All right. Next bill we have on this list. Sorry, we're moving quick, so just make sure, because a lot of this is just moving. House Bill 4063. This is the bill that's related. We have it set as a priority 3 as well. It's Business Oregon will conduct a pilot program with 3 jurisdictions in the state to study and recommend administrative process for approving residential construction projects. There was discussion in the work session of expanding this more to counties, even though cities are pretty heavy in the bill currently. But there was significant conversation of, are there other entities such as, no surprise, Metro was one that was expressing the desire to have the ability to be a pilot project. But with that said, they moved the bill forward, went to Ways and Means, and that is currently where it's sitting. Again, that will require money and funding, but it did keep the bill alive past the deadline.
As this is a bill, we have both reviews from CDD and Road on, and Chris, it looks like you have some updates to share.
No, just to note that, Road had this as a priority 2 opposed. And again, it's a bill that has the study piece, which sounds great, but also some very specific changes in an additional section that makes it a little more cumbersome and affects our surveyor's office in the way of allowing a mass quantity of development permits to be pulled before a subdivision is actually platted. And that can create some downstream impacts. So in addition to the fact that roads don't have to be paved to be substantially complete and to pull building permits as well. So those are the concerns we had in the bill as to why we oppose it with a 2 ranking rather than a 3.
And I do believe Ryan reached out to the Home Builders Association, who is the requester of that bill, to at least express those concerns. I don't know if they got back with anything yet, but we did make that outreach.
So
Yes,
my
we
understanding
did.
is Washington County is taking an active role in working with the home builders to on an amendment. AOC is also involved in this as well. So I don't know that we have to invest too much of our time in this thing because others are doing that for us. But just to let you know where we're at.
Took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say, he said he was reaching out, working with the league on it and the association on it. And so, yeah, and I know that there's others involved. If there's specific language that you guys have that you would like to enter into consideration, we can forward that along and it won't spend an inordinate amount of political capital to do it. So we can continue to engage on your specific needs, or if you want to defer to the others he's already working with, of course, that's okay too. Just let us know.
Great, thank you.
And Commissioner Adair, if it is if the board's supportive, we can update the formal priority for this to a 2. We basically have 2 departments. One's recommending a 3, one's a 2, and I'm happy to roll it up to a 2. So it reflects that way on future reporting if that works for the board.
I think that makes sense. So yes, till we find out that Washington County and AOC has actually done some better amendments.
Okay. I'm gonna scoot right along. House Bill 4118. This is another one that had a public hearing, and this might be one of those glitches. I want to double check and cross-reference and re-pull it. So this is one that is dead, as my understanding, but it still pops up in the system every once in a while. There's a glitch there. It only made it to its public hearing. When I pulled this, I think that's because it was yesterday and it captured the date, but it did not have a work session by yesterday, and it was only in the policy committee. So that one just pops up on the report by error, but it did not move forward. So if that's helpful to know, I will just scoot past that one. We had it as a priority too, but it did not make it to a work session.
Yeah, but I saw still, what is it? Lily, Suzanne, and Jack's name on it. And I was like, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Not a problem, not a problem. And then the next one is 515, or wow, completely read that backwards, 1518, sorry. And this one is related to reach codes. And so I'm gonna punt to Ryan here a little bit on this one. This one has been having a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion. And he has been entailed on this bill a lot more than I have. So and we have that,
so
that's
that
a
one,
priority too.
we mentioned this, I think, on our last call, that it looked like the bill was going to be going to work group. Since then, there's been a significant negotiation, development of a 22-person work group task force that will be pretty evenly split amongst industry representatives, local governments, energy advocates, and there's going to be 2 seats for local governments, and we made sure to advocate for those seats to be created and included on there for you guys to have a potential shot at it. So the presiding officers are going to be the ones who select the members. The 2 chairs of the energy committees in the House and Senate are going to be considered the co-chairs. And then otherwise, the presiding officers on both sides select the members. And as I understand it, they're generally going to be opening it up. So if you guys are interested in having somebody serve on that work group, it doesn't have to be an elected official. It can be someone from a particular department head or someone, you know, who with expertise in the issue. Get the names to us, submit them, and get them a part of the consideration as soon as the bill passes, because I think they're going to start their work pretty much right when session ends.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. All right. Any questions or anything on that bill before I jump to the next?
You didn't actually do 1533, did you, Senate Bill?
That's the next one. That's the next one I'm jumping to right now.
Okay, all right.
Yep. 15. Go ahead. 1533 is the next one on the list. This one passed the Senate floor yesterday unanimously. There was 5 that were either excused or absent, but everybody else was a yes vote. We have here in the notes that this is that technical fix to our Rule ADU bill from or Senate Bill 391 from last session. But this is related to wildfires and has some technical fixes in it. And so this will move over. It met all the deadlines. It's moving to the House to start that process, and we'll need to have a work session posted by the end of the day Friday to stay alive if it doesn't go to one of those exempted committees. But it likely will go to the Wildfire Recovery Committee on the House side to keep consistency. But since it passed with so much support in the Senate, I don't think there would be any issues that we would anticipate. So, and that's set as a priority 1 for the county.
It is. Thank you.
All right. Moving into the last pages, we're more halfway. Senate Bill 1510. This is requires police officer to inform people or informed stopped persons of right to refuse consent to search. There's some notes here from our Community Justice Department. We have this set as a priority 3. It did get referred to Ways and Means and is there. I will refresh here to see that one, but I wanted to pause. This is one of those bills in the judiciary one where if our departments are much more experts on this than I am, if there's any comments wanted to be mentioned while I run that. We have it set as a priority 3, but it is just sitting in Ways and Means at this time.
And I believe DV sent a note. I'm just pulling that up. She was not able to attend today, but is monitoring 1510 and expects that it is proceeding as expected. So she's tracking that through other work, I assume, likely through AOC.
Okay. Next one then on the list is House Bill 4004, and this is one that has it's had its work session and it is sitting in Ways and Means as well. We have this as a priority 2, and we discussed it about how it addresses, or its goal is to address staffing crises for the public behavioral health workforce. And I don't really have much of an update on this one other than it looks like it's in Ways and Means. It looks good. The sponsor of it is the co-chair of Ways and Means, but I would defer to our health department or health services department if they are hearing anything else that we're not.
Not hearing anything else. I've not had a recent update, so what you're sharing is accurate from my perspective.
Thank you, Janice.
And House Bill 4081, this is another one that it's had its work session. I need to check on whether this one is still alive or not. And Janice, you might know before me, the way the report pulls this, I was not following this one yesterday. It looks like it had its work session, but I don't know if it made it to the floor in time to pass that first chamber, or if it just had a work session and died. So my apologies. This one is set as a priority 3, but it's just paused there.
I'll just take a look at the report I got yesterday. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet and let you know if it's still alive. If I can tell, I don't know that I'll be able to tell. So I'll chat if I find something.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. And then the last few bills that we have here, 4126. This one is again probably same thing. I don't think that this one moved forward. I think the way it was just pulled on the list, but it did not get referred to Ways and Means, and it did not make its work session deadline. And it's in Business and Labor, which is not one of those exempt committees. And so if it's helpful, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but unless somebody's hearing something different, that one should not be on the list moving forward. And again, the cycle is they have until midnight of these deadlines. And so because we pulled this list yesterday, it might have just grabbed it by mistake. Okay. 4101. This one's related to distance in certain places, which person may not use their inhalant. This one had a floor session yesterday, I believe. I believe it passed, or I do know it passed. We have this set as a priority 2. The only one that showed up in the biggest player that showed up in opposition to this was the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. It just expands the distance from 10 feet to 25 feet. But from what we're hearing, that this is looking good to pass in this other chamber as well. And we have that set as a priority 2. All right, so we are down to the last 2 pages. 4052. This is one that had a work session yesterday, move forward, or at least looks good. This requires the Oregon Health Authority to provide grants to operate 2 cultural and logistics specific mobile health units. We talked about this a little bit in the last meeting. I don't know if if our departments have more to say on this one, other than I believe that it will eventually be referred, or it might find its way into Ways and Means. Just because I think there was some conversation that has happened within the last 40 hours around just fiscal, but they're trying to eliminate the fiscal, I know, as well. And so that's the last note I had on it. But I will pause there to see if there's any others.
I looked it up this morning and it looked like it did pass with a 10-0 vote, and it's going to be referred to Joint Committee on Ways and Means.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Next one is 1545. 1545 is again, the governor's big workforce bill. They are going to have, I believe they probably already have, they are starting to work this bill harder. It is currently, let me refresh. Sorry, it's one of those days where I want to refresh to make sure that OLIS is matching our report since midnight. This one, yes, this one is still in Ways and Means. I know if one of the conversations are aspects of this bill were pulled out. I know there were some amendments around the apprenticeship work. Then that was worked with stakeholder groups. But some of the conversation is just waiting in Ways and Means to see if the fiscal can be met. It is a large funding request, and that is where it's going to hold until they figure out if the money can be appropriated that way. Again, I think some aspects of this bill also, they're trying to debate whether they can use bonding dollars, ARPA dollars, or just general fund. Some of the proposals of how she would use the funds only qualify for some of those funding sources, but there are others that if they went out and were building facilities, they're looking at trying to move that into bonding dollars instead, to use general fund and ARPA dollars for other things. So that is the last update I received on that. We have that set as a priority 2, by the way. All right. Next one is 1554, and then I believe we then just are on the last page or two. So 1554, this bill relates to OHA doing a study on how the response to the public health system responded to the COVID pandemic. This did have its work session and passed out, but it got referred, the motion was to refer it to Ways and Means. That is where it currently sits. I don't know if it will move forward here. I'm hearing conflicted conversations on it. They traditionally do not send a bill to Ways and Means and then amend the policy. They just talk about amending the funding into it. But there is a conversation of whether it's broad enough to use as a vehicle for other purposes. The relating to clause currently is related to public health preparedness. And so what we had heard is that there was a few members that would like to set aside dollars to continue to help with public health modernization. If that is the case, they were looking at this bill. I believe there's another vehicle out there as well, but nobody has reached agreement there in the Ways and Means world. I don't think that's being pushed by advocacy groups one way or another. I think everyone would like funding for public health modernization, but they're just looking at how to advance some things now if the dollars are right, especially after the revenue forecast came back with such a positive cash flow for the state. They were, I don't think, expecting that much of a positive cash flow. And so it's kind of changed the discussion on some of these bills that have very broad relating to clauses like this one does. But again, defer to our health services department if they're hearing different, or hearing, I don't mean hearing different, just hearing additional things, because they are in different circles than we are. So.
The only different thing I had heard that it has a $1 million price tag associated with it.
And I would expect that if they keep it at that it will definitely either be an ARPA or general fund appropriation. They rarely will ever go to bonding dollars or other funding sources if it's under 3 million. So that if that's helpful to know those dollars, if it's ARPA dollars, then whatever they're funding is going to have an expedient timeline because they have to meet the US Treasury deadlines on that. If it's general fund, the study or whatever the result of the bill is, will have a lot more flexibility on timing. So, all right. Next bill is Senate Bill 1555. This bill passed the Senate and had some no votes on it. The no votes were Senator Finley, Senator Girard, Senator Knopp, and Senator Thompson. One of the conversations on the floor was that this bill just keeps the fiscal around this bill continues to grow. This one is related to the reimbursement of newborn nurse home visiting services. We have it as a priority too. Nobody's debating the merit of the bill, but just the description of the fiscal had some concerns on the floor and ate up a lot of the discussion in committee as well. Specifically that there's different methodologies on, or disagreement on the methodology of how they're getting to how much this bill is going to cost the state. And so I believe that the no votes were were consistent with that conversation and less about the policy of the bill. And then if you're looking at the floor vote, there were also 7 others that were either absent or excused. So given that there was only 4 nay votes, but all the other excused were Republicans as well, there might be a more robust conversation or a caucus to caucus conversation as this bill lands in the House. So that said, it has moved forward and will proceed to stay alive in the House chamber. House Bill 4092, this one is related to the telecommunications and modifies the duties of the Broadband Advisory Council. This one we've talked about a little bit in our previous meeting as well. It's set as a priority 3 for us as a county, and then it has had its work session, but it has been referred to Ways and Means, and it is currently sitting there. There's not been a lot of conversation around it in Ways and Means, and so I believe it's one of those not back burner, but definitely not front burner bills. So advocacy on this bill, if we want to see it move forward, pushing would be important. But otherwise, I think it's just going to come down to, is there funds to fund every policy bill in Ways and Means? But otherwise, it's just sitting there. So. All right. Next one is 1573. This is Senator Knopp's bill, and this one, Commissioner, we talked about on the front end of this call. This is the one that appropriates $50 million to the Forest Department for thinning operations. This bill, is my understanding, is going to Ways and Means to die. They are going to have a conversation about this in the interim, unless something dramatically changes in negotiations. Part of it is the funding mechanisms, but also part of it is just making sure that money is, if it's given to the department, that the department has plans in place. And so my understanding is that bill is dead for this session. So although it is sitting in Ways and Means and theoretically could still be alive, it's just not going to move forward. And this was Senator Knopp's bill. So.
Yes, I testified on it. And it was interesting because I was part of a lot of testimony. I mean, I was listening, and most of them they were voted on, but this bill wasn't voted on after we all testified. So I thought that was kind of unusual.
Yep. Well, and yeah, it is. So, perfect. All right. House Bill 4063. These are the last 2 bills. House Bill 4063, this is the business organ to conduct a pilot project with well, it goes back to the conversation we had earlier. So I can breeze over this, but it just appears twice. I believe that is because of as Whitney had mentioned, because we have 2 notes in there, it pops up twice. But again, this is in Ways and Means sitting. So I didn't know, Chris, if you had additional comments there or not. It just popped up a second time on our list at the bottom. So. If not, the final bill is 1576, and this is related to mattresses. You've probably heard this one being called the mattress tax. This one is, that's what it's being dubbed in the building. This one is, it has received its work session. Just let me refresh here to make sure that nothing has changed on the report, but it has received its work session. It is going to Ways and Means. Part of the conversation in Ways and Means is if there is a fee associated with this bill, does it need to be statutorily passed in the budget reconciliation bill? And if so, they're looking at doing that. Otherwise, they're also looking at what the fiscal would be to set up the program. So it is in Ways and Means, but it's just one of those bills that's quirky in conversations at the Capitol currently. So but it establishes the stewardship program for mattresses. We have that that's related to our solid waste department, and it's set as a priority 3 currently.
It's we're supporting it.
Believe.
Yes, Chad, I don't know if you have other, it looks like you had brief notes entered in bill tracker relating to this bill, but any other updates you wanted to share on this in terms of why you're proposing position and priority?
Product stewardship programs work very well in Oregon for paint and electronics. And I know there's been a couple attempts to get something for mattresses going over the past few years. So our trade groups are all excited about seeing this move forward. If you spend any time at the landfill, you think all people do is buy mattresses or replace carpet. We just see a lot of them come in here.
We're not supposed to sleep on it forever. It is a third of your life. So remember those important rules.
Well, I think 70 or 80% of the components in a mattress are readily recyclable. So it's definitely a good waste stream to target to keep out of the landfill.
Okay, have you ever been on one of those horsehair mattresses from Sweden that are like $40,000? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would hope we could recycle it. There is a comment from, and I have never slept on one. I've only seen the store. There's a comment from Commissioner DeBonne. He wants to know more about the Broadband Advisory Committee bill.
Yeah, I was going to circle back and just give a brief update, and we can also follow up offline with written material. But House Bill 4092, Joe Sidoni did an initial review on this bill and had 2 notes kind of on how this may impact the county specifically. It sounds like this bill updates the makeup of the Broadband Advisory Council, and the change includes a shift that would allow more representation from rural Oregon with a focus on underserved areas. It also looks like it would initiate a mechanism to fund broadband service subsidies, similar to how utilities can be subsidized. And so Joe is noting that that type of a tool may be something that can be used to address lack of access to broadband in Deschutes County locally. So Commissioner DeBona, I'm happy to follow up with you with additional materials on that, but those are high level kind of the notes that Joe entered as he was reviewing this bill. And I will just note, Commissioner Chang did send a note, and it sounds like Commissioner DeBona has also indicated that the room that they are in, they're not able to leave currently. And it sounds like Commissioner Chang had a little bit of difficulty finding a place that he could hear appropriately. So I just wanted to note that for the group, that it sounds like Commissioner DeBona is chatting, but they are waiting for a speech to begin and in a unique area to attend today's meeting.
I noticed that, yes.
And I think that bill is going to be important, commissioners, just because while the money is not in hand yet, the federal infrastructure bill that was passed, that will, I believe, allocate $100 million to the state of Oregon. It just hasn't landed yet, to my understanding, and they're going to be turning to this new commission's makeup after this bill to kind of help develop the grants for that. And so my understanding is local governments, tribal governments will be able to apply for those, but the makeup of that committee is the new makeup of the committee will help be formulating those grants.
Phil, per my early morning conversation or listening, House Bill, I think it's 4061. They said it was actually a pretty good bill on water, marijuana, water. We don't have that on our list, correct?
If we do, I think it would. It's probably not. We don't have it set as a priority. It's a priority 4 or 5. If this list is only polling the priority 3s, 2s, and 1s now. So if it's if we do have it on the list, I'll go back and check and then figure that out and report back to you. But it did have a work session yesterday, but I'm not seeing that it had. It made it to the third reading list on the floor. It could have been referred to Ways and Means. It did have a second referral to it, so I'll double check on that as well.
Because it's
Commissioner, we're not currently tracking 4061.
Could we put it on it? I mean, I saw the water that was used on the hemp marijuana field out in Sisters, and then we saw the 49 greenhouses out in Alfalfa. And I mean, we did get a little snow yesterday, maybe 4 inches at Bachelor, but truly, we probably need to look at that one. And then there was another bill that they talked about this morning. I think it was to reallocate the funding from Measure 110. Is that Senate Bill 1587-3.
I know there was I will look that up. You said 1587?
I wrote it. Yes, that's
related to cannabis. Yeah. That one is related to subject buildings and premises use for unlawful grows. But there was one of the cannabis bills that was having a conversation around reallocation of funding to backfill what funds Measure 10 was taking from the marijuana revenue. So I will go and double check that, but I don't know if that moved forward or not. It was in the Judiciary and Ballot Measure 110 Implementation Committee, but I don't know if it moved forward at all. So I will go check if we're tracking it, but then also find the bill that you're referencing to. So.
And then the other one I talked about at right when the meeting started was House Bill 4141, that renewable diesel. I don't know about Chris, but I would really hate to see us pass a bill where we can only use renewable diesel and there really isn't any. It's kind of like there's only one electric spot to charge a truck in Portland, only one spot, and it takes like 8 hours. So yeah, we really need to make sure that reality is following. I don't know, Chris, what do you think? Do we need to move it up in priority? Are you worried about it?
Well, I haven't read the full text of the bill yet. I did skim it a little bit here during this meeting. It sounds like there's the ability to suspend its requirement if supply and demand become an issue. But overall, yeah, I mean, it is a concern that mandating something, requiring something, and then not having the market respond can be a little bit disastrous if you don't have a way out. But like I said earlier, we buy it, we use it, we like it. Hopefully, the market can provide it in a way that, provides a benefit that it's intended to. But legislatively, yeah, it could be interesting.
I just remembered I have a diesel tractor. So yeah, like if I have no fuel for it, I'm going to be in trouble. So anyway, yes. All right. Is there anything else, Phil or Ryan?
I would just note on that bill, Chris or our commissioner, is that it does look from the paperwork that they're going to at least entertain the amendments -2, -4, and -6 amendments on that bill. -6 is Senator Finley's amendment, and then the other two are coming from Representative Evans. None of them are being proposed from the committee itself. And so I don't know which ones will move forward. The weird thing is all three are saying it replaces the amendment or replaces the measure. So I doubt when you see things like that, they traditionally are gut and stuffs. You're not going to see 3 gut and stuff amendments adopted. So it just heads up that all of them have been posted now. They were not all posted at the beginning of this meeting when we first talked about it, but they all are up there now. So.
And I'll just say that we're going to get you numbers on the specifics about what bills, how many died and how many are left over. And the big focus now towards the end of session is going to be on capital requests. Your state representative and state senator, specifically your senator, is well positioned to be a meaningful person in the conversation about trying to secure infrastructure resources back to the county. And so let's keep in contact with him. We certainly are going to be on the PacWest side of things because he's going to be in a very instrumental role now to help bring home those wins for us.
According to my early conversation, they said 26 of the 96 Senate bills were killed. So, but I don't think they give a House number. So it'll be interesting to find out.
That's an old number. That's the posting number was 30 of the 107 Senate bills died at the posting deadline. So that's not reflective of what happened last night.
Okay.
That's all we have on our end.
Okay. Wendy, did you see anything else on our end that we should pull up right now?
No, I would just open the floor. Thank you. We had a few staff members that flagged that bills weren't rolling up accurately into the report. So we were able to fix that. And that's why we asked Bill to run the report again. So just in the event that that did happen for anybody else and you want to flag something, but please feel free to raise a hand in Zoom and we can run through if anyone has any other updates to provide.
Absolutely.
I had a bill, House Bill 4116 relating to harmful algae blooms. I believe that one has died, but just wanted to confirm it still showed up on the list.
It did die, and I apologize. I skipped over that one because I noticed that as well. I pull this list, but it just whether it hits the OLS system by midnight or not. That's where Bill Tracker pulls everything, and so sometimes it'll just pull incorrectly, or when it's days where there's a ton of information being dumped in the system, it just snags things wrong. And well, I'll keep trying on that. So.
I don't see. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner.
This is, I don't know if you all remember Dorley Kingston, but she is a Deschutes County resident. She had Senate Bill 706, I believe, a couple years ago with Senator Knopp. That didn't go anywhere. So then Jack Zika, Representative Zika took it over. And then she's emailing me, and I feel so badly. She wanted to have some kind of pilot project with cottages. There's no prayer of a chance anything like that is going to be put in anywhere. Is it? Honestly, what do I tell this? What do I tell someone who has been counting on me?
Commissioner Dare, I would say no chance in the short session, just given how fast it's going. Dorley's asked for kind of the co-housing concept model on rural lands and MUA. And so that's a better concept for the full session.
Okay, so that's what I'll have to tell her then. Because Representative Zika originally had said, well, perhaps we could fit it in somewhere, but okay, all right. So that will give her another year to work on this, right? This is really sad because she wants to do this cottage, and she has a lot of property. Sounds like a lovely idea.
I think Phil or Ryan can confirm, but there was a lot of hope that this short session might tackle housing in a meaningful way, and really it's not. It's
okay.
I think that's really going to be a much bigger package for the 23 full session, and so let's definitely keep that on our radar for the full session. Is that accurate, Ryan? Phil, is that?
How much money are we talking about?
Yes, it's not money actually. It's a regulatory. It's a regulatory change to allow a different housing model on rural lands.
I think, what might occur is a lot of the bills that I think they saw them moving forward that were policy specific didn't make it. They're still moving forward a lot of bills in housing, or at least the significant portion of bills in housing that are just a bunch of studies. So if maybe sending a letter to the agencies in the interim saying, as you study this, you might want to consider adding this as part of the study, that might get some legs there, because these bills are very high level and they're not telling the agency any real specifics on what to study. So, but it checks the box of, hey, we're studying housing. So that we could still do that. But yeah, if she's wanting policy specific bill, it's a little too late on this session.
Oh, that's a great idea. So if you can let us know who to write the letter to, we sure will. And yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. So did you guys just read the chat that the president is going to be mentioning Deschutes County in his speech?
Nice.
Well, we'll have to watch it on video.
Maybe it'll be for stabilization center services.
Maybe, oh yeah, maybe the federal government is going to give Oregon more money because we're still, at the bottom of the list? Yes, more money, please.
Well, it's certainly possible that it's related to CAHOOTS funding at the federal level for crisis services. We'll see. I'm interested. Now I'm intrigued.
Truly. Okay. Is there anything else we need to do today? When's our next meeting? Did any other department head want to say anything this morning? I don't see anything in the chat. No hands up?
Our next meeting is next Friday at 9 a.m. So we'll reconvene then. And we did get I'm not confident in this, but Commissioner Chang did say that the mention might be tied to ARPA funding, use of ARPA funding with regards to the president's speech. So I guess we'll all stay tuned and see what the context is there.
Oh, maybe he'll give Deschutes County credit for all the money we allocated to childcare, though the Bend Bulletin has never mentioned it. Like, oh my gosh, millions of dollars. What is it? Almost $8 million that we allocated in ARPA for childcare for the desert. So that would be a first, wouldn't it? So thank you very much. No hands up. Okay, so 9 a.m. next Friday, the 25th of February.
Right.
Thank you, Phil. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everyone.